Yeah. This sport, I've been this sport, find it.
Today on my couch, we have one of my favorite voices on social media. Known for his range, he is a storyteller. He's a rapper, singer-songwriter, photographer, director, co-founder of the creative platform Seeing Our Future Today, a gunner, which for those of you who are not in the know, is an Arsenal supporter, Mr. Camera Shy, Lukey the Explorer, Chandelier Happy, and October's very own, Mr. Lebo Lukewarm. Welcome to the Good Sport, my friend.
That's a crazy intro. I don't think I've ever been introed like that before.
Thank you. Thank you for being here. Like, you've honestly been, like I said, one of my favorite voices on social media, just because of, you know, the blend of positivity, inspiration, realness. Like, it's very easy to connect with you, even for people who may not really know you that well or have interacted with you much in real life. You really manage to find a way of expressing yourself in a way that makes you very real, and not just, you know, a portrayal of, you know, the picture perfect, even though the picture is often perfect, you know?
Thank you. I think it also comes from the fact that, like, when Instagram, I was at the beginning of Instagram, right? Before there was even such a thing as influencers. We were known as Instagrammers, right? And I think at that time it was full of, like, a lot of creatives, people that you could look up to and have conversations with and get pointers from, and then everybody was still very authentic and real. Nobody was pushing a brand in front of you. So I think, still coming from that school of thought, I've carried that over, that we don't have to be all Sally. We could also just be humans, right? And I think for me, the most important thing, more so for social media and developing your own voice and being authentic, is also not forgetting that you're speaking to actual humans, you know, and don't forget that. I think a lot of us have forgotten that there's a human behind that screen that you're addressing, and it's not just a bot, and you can't just go wild and say whatever it is you want to say. You know, you still have to take into account that people have feelings, you know, and you also have feelings. So some of the stuff that I see affects me, and then I log off, you know. So I think I've found a very healthy balance.
Yeah, I think it's really cool. Like, I didn't think of it that way, of like how you were at the beginning of, like, the Instagram movement, and like that was a very different world, because when Instagram first, you know, started, like, even the type of content that people were sharing was a lot more personal to them. And, you know, like, there was those 5 or 6 set filters, and people didn't care if like they put sepia over, like, their image and it looks all wrong by photography measures or whatever. Yeah. It was, you know, just for fun. I remember I had, like, a photo of, like, strawberries and cream that my mom made, and it was just, like, on my Instagram for the longest time. And that's what it was. It was really just a means for the people you knew in your real life to see a couple of photos taken by you.
Exactly. Where's that photo now?
That photo is in my archives.
Why is that?
Just because I think when I skimmed through my feed, I had a lot of photos that were just random, and I kept quite a lot more of them that were personal, that also weren't arbitrary entirely.
Yeah.
You know, like the strawberries and cream one, it was just like, you couldn't even tell it was strawberries and cream necessarily, so I felt like it didn't actually represent anything that someone could connect with me on the basis of. But I tried to keep as much of it as possible. I mean, if you look at, like, the number of posts I have, it far exceeds a lot of people. Like, I have like 600 posts on my feed that, you know, it's all part of the story. I want people to be able to scroll back all the way down and find things they didn't expect would be there. And yeah.
I mean, there's a trend of purging your Instagram, right?
Yeah.
It's like you see somebody with like 2,000 followers and then 3 posts. Like, how did you do that? Then they've purged, right? And I feel like when doing that, especially when you're brand building, you kind of miss an opportunity for somebody who's getting introduced to you to see your journey, right? Because that's what we're doing. We're documenting our lives in real time. And I feel like people don't realize that we're doing the same things that our predecessors were doing when writing it down. The only difference is that we're taking a picture and we're putting a caption on it, right? We're still documenting a moment in time. I think it's going to come a time where we will realize we have to print all of the stuff and put it in a physical copy. You know, you'll have your image with your caption, and then it'll have the date. And then people, your great-great-great-grandkids will look at it and go, oh, my grandmother did this, or my ancestor did this, rather, right? And the whole idea of archiving and just curating this perfect life that is not true to how your life actually is also misleading to self, right? Not only to your audience.
Like you said, it's a missed opportunity to actually engage with the person on the other side of the screen. I don't know when last you personally like scrolled down all the way down on someone else's Instagram, like to see how their journeys unfolded. But I think there's always a time where that happens organically, where when you want to know, it's nice to be able to go through.
Absolutely.
And like you said, like I think like the hard copy images that we should leave for the future generations, that's why there's the appeal for the Polaroid camera. Like objectively, photography wise, I don't think anyone is getting it for the purpose that it is the best camera to shoot on. Recently I've gotten into disposable cameras. Again, not necessarily like the finest of analog or, you know, film photography. It's point and shoot. You actually get quite a few blanks no matter how hard you try, but it's
there's a bit of a resurgence that's happening with photography, film, and music. People going back to vinyl records and people going back to analog cameras. And there's that beauty and the unknown, right? Because right now we're living in this instant gratification period. I take it now, I see it, I don't like it, I delete it, right? Whereas I take it and I don't know.
And I wait.
And then everything else in between is me enjoying the moment, right? And not me trying to get the perfect photo.
Yeah, and like also like even the process of releasing it is not instant gratification.
Absolutely.
You're like, okay, well, I have 15 more, you know, frames on this roll of film. Then I have to go home. Then I have to take it to RGB.
Yeah.
Plugging RGB, they're the only ones
go.
I know in Joburg.
There we go.
And then you know, then you're like, okay, cool. They're gonna send it to me tomorrow, and you wait that whole time, and that anticipation builds. And you're not, chances are also not going to take 6 photos of the same occasion.
Absolutely.
It makes you a lot more, I don't want to say cautious.
I think it's more, the word is intentional, right? It's a lot more intentional with what you capture, right? And that's why I said that you'll capture the moment or the thing, and then you put your camera away, and then you live your life.
And what I found is it actually made me not pick up my phone nearly as much.
Absolutely.
Like not even checking it for messages. I realized it was such a tool for me to document moments and also then feel bad about when you whip out a phone to document some moments. Whereas this plastic camera, everyone gets a little bit excited when you whip that out. And
I mean, I've got a Minolta X700, which is an analog camera, a 35mm, and then I've got a Yashica D, which is a 120mm. I take those out, and sometimes I don't even want to take the photo because it's so expensive, right? Every frame costs me a lot of money. So this whole thing of take a photo of me, I'm like, no, I'm not going to do that. Like, you got to do something special for me to take a photo of you, right? And I found myself, like, now that I've moved, because I used to live in New York, and I go to this place, we're plugging developers. So I used to go to this place called Photodome in Brooklyn. And their turnaround time was like anything between a week to like 10 days, right? Which is relatively quick. And then if you bring it in the morning, you'll get it in 2 days, right? And I think I developed a really cool relationship with one of the developers, and I'd get them almost instantaneously. And now that I've moved to Atlanta, and it's even more expensive, which doesn't even make sense, I'm sitting with 16 rolls of undeveloped film. I don't even know what's on there, right? And I'm just like, should I develop it here? Or should I just keep waiting until I get back to New York? But I keep buying film, right? So I'm gonna sit with all this stock of used film, just waiting to get developed. And 10 years might go by, you know, and film expires. And I don't know what's gonna happen to that roll if I develop it in 10 years.
And you also don't wanna like travel back and forth putting it through these scanners. It might risk losing some of those shots, even though you don't know what's actually on there.
Yeah.
Like, it's funny, once it's developed, I think the memory starts coming back. Wait, didn't I take a photo in between these 3?
Exactly, right?
Yeah, I think like what you said about deliberate is actually something that I found most striking about your relationship with art. I believe you've mentioned that music is your favorite thing to do. What inspired 12-year-old Lebo?
I don't know. Like, I've got a very weird relationship with music. Like, music is like the doctor that I know that I have to go see. And sometimes I don't go see them, and then I get sick, and then I'm like, oh man, why am I so sick? You know, and then it's like, oh yeah, I need to go see my doctor for a checkup, right? And that's the
doctor's
relationship.
gonna give you shit.
Yeah, right. And then I get there and I'm like, oh man, I don't even remember how to do this. And that's my relationship with music, excuse me. And I found that the more I make music, the less stressed I am in life. And it's also the reason why I never took music seriously as a career path, because I was like, this is my therapy session. It's very personal to me. And I don't do it professionally because I don't want to be told what to do. You know, I don't want to find a song that is a hit and then I have to figure out the formula and stick to it. I'm like, no, it's not a formula for me. It's a feeling. So 12-year-old me sitting at my cousin's house listening to hip hop and him saying, can you rap? And I was like, no. Him co-writing a verse with me, something about lyrical shovel. You know, I bury you with my lyrical shovel. I was 12 years old. And like there was something in that moment that said, oh, okay, cool, I could actually rap. Went back to school, formed a rap group with a couple of my classmates. We took it a bit seriously. We were performing, like 5 boys from Bloemfontein got invited to perform in Carnival City in Johannesburg, which was incredible. We did that. We won KTV. It was great.
What was the group's name?
It was ACT 81.
ACT 81.
Yes, so ACT stood for Acidic Terrorist. Horrible name. And then the 81.
It hasn't aged the way you would have wanted it.
Yeah, that's why we were like ACT 81. And then 81 was like our ages combined.
Okay.
At the time. So it all came out to 81. And then I even got an 81 tattoo like at one point, which was pretty cool. I still love it. I mean, I always say that my body is a reflection of my past, right?
Yeah.
And my tattoos say that, right? And so through the years, I found that I don't have projects that are the same. My first solo EP was 2013, 10 years ago. And then I dropped something else, 2017, which was a double disc, which is completely different to the debut EP and the double disc EP. Both of them are like night and day, Swimming Practice and The Yacht Below. And then 2021, I dropped my first debut album, which was Chandelier Happy, which was pretty long, which was because I didn't know what I wanted to do. Pandemic hit, I bought a guitar. Then I said, I want to learn how to play the guitar. So I learned how to play the guitar when they released us all. I went into studio and then I figured I'm going to make a guitar heavy album. And then that's what Chandelier Happy was.
That's beautiful.
Currently working on a new project, sorry.
No, it's great. That's
And
great. Tell us more.
I'm contemplating whether I'm dropping a project or singles.
Okay.
And it's completely different.
Well, are the songs related to one another in terms of the larger story?
As in from my first debut EP?
No,
Here
like
Forever, Gone
with this
Forever?
new EP that you're contemplating releasing as singles.
Mm-hmm.
I imagine just from what I've listened to and consumed of your music, they are themed. They're eras.
Yeah.
And within the project, there's quite a lot of eclectic diversity going on of different moods and feelings, and also genre influences. So I imagine you have a name for this EP, even though you're contemplating releasing it as singles.
I don't.
You don't?
I don't. Because, so what happened was, I was working on another EP.
Okay.
Then I got bored. So I'm sitting with like 8 to 12 tracks that are just boring me right now. And then I started working on something else. And this is the something else.
I see. So
Yeah.
what are you going to do with those 8 to 12 tracks?
I don't know. I had a title for that project, which was The Unamusement Park, right? So I just got to a point where I wasn't amused by the music, and I was like,
Drop it.
It feels like I'm at an amusement park, not an amusement
This
park.
is so great, though. I love the title.
So
And there's music for every occasion.
absolutely.
And you don't know what that music's occasion is going to be for the listener. Which I know you know this because you've thought about it.
So I can tell you why I got bored. It's because it kind of felt like an extension of my previous project, because some of those tracks were so close in time between when I released to when I started working on it. And I generally like to take about 2 years before I start making any more music. And so I rushed into it, and then they all kind of sound like they belong on that project. And so that's why I got bored. And then I find myself working on this new project where sonically it's somewhere else. I was sitting with Marco Polo, who's...
Shout out Marco
Polo, right?
Marco Polo's
I was sitting with Marco Polo yesterday, and we jokingly said, for this project, maybe I should go under a pseudonym, because it's completely different. It's left field, right? And I was like, yeah, maybe that's not a bad idea. But I spoke to Gina. I don't know if you know Gina Jeans. She is a phenomenal musician, DJ, all-around creative. And I told her that I wanted to go under a pseudonym. She's like, no, say it with your chest. You Lebo Lukewarm. You could do whatever you want. And I was like, that's fair. Because I'm not getting paid to make music. I don't have a boss. So I can do whatever I want. There's no right, there's no wrong.
It's not a marketing error.
Exactly. Right?
Yeah.
So I could do whatever I want, and I'm feeling like I'm going to do whatever I want. Probably drop March, just before the summer. Well, the Northern
new one? Or the Unamusement Park?
The new one.
Okay.
I don't know if there's room.
Surprise drop Unamusement Park.
I don't know if there's room. Honestly, I don't know if there's room in the narrative. If it's a surprise drop, it'll have to be repackaged. Ooh, crazy.
It's okay. This is filmed in reality.
Crazy.
Spoiler alert.
Yeah, and it's scam likely. It's a number I don't know.
I think the reason that I'm saying this is because there was a song that I felt very similarly about recently. It was originally intended for my last EP, Malice in Wonderland, but then I didn't think it was good enough to be in Malice in Wonderland because the other songs tied together a lot more beautifully. Then I left this song out. Then I was speaking to my A&R and producers about, okay, cool, should I release this on SoundCloud and just let it be something that I put out there and maybe someone will see it? And they were like, no, why would you waste a song on SoundCloud when you don't actually do anything else on SoundCloud? Because I don't have a presence, it would be basically just uploading it into the abyss where no one is really going to see it.
Yeah.
And they're like, no, just fix what isn't sitting right with you about it and put it on Spotify and Apple Music, which is what I did. I ended up packaging it as a surprise drop because I'm someone who really likes building anticipation. I think it's just part of my character. I like getting people excited about what's to come, letting people imagine things.
But it's also the marketing in you, right? It's like, what's the point of a surprise drop if there's no anticipation? Like, no one's waiting for you. And this is what one of my friends said to me. He said, bro, you can drop whenever, however, to whoever, because no one is waiting for a project from you. You're not like Rihanna, where everybody's waiting for a project. And then she's built up this anticipation, and then she just goes, yeah, I'm not gonna make music anymore, right? Same thing with Andre 3000. No one was really waiting for that project. And then he dropped and he outsold first week everybody.
And if people were waiting for it, their expectations would be entirely different as well, which kind of corrupts like your first encounter with a project and with the music.
Yeah.
And so my advice would be just release it because it's really not yours to hold on to. And I think that's what happens with music once it's a file. Once it's a wave,
it dies on the hard
It's not yours. It's not yours. It belongs to the greater world. And the similarities that like you feel are not similarities listeners will necessarily feel. I think we really easily like try to think on behalf of our audiences.
I also have this, I don't know what to call it, but it's more of I don't like to consider myself as one with a signature. I like to think that I am multifaceted, and even sonically, somebody's really trying to get a hold of me, and I don't know. Sorry about that. So I don't want to like picture myself as just this one-dimensional artist with a signature. So when you look at my artwork, you go, oh, that's definitely a Lebo Lukewarm. And I think maybe some may say that I'm robbing myself of some sort of fingerprint. And I'm like, yeah, but sometimes if you go off feeling and if you go off what inspires you, you can't necessarily just channel everything and distill it to your signature. So as much as it's a beautiful thing to have an artistic fingerprint, I do also believe that we are much like hands, right? No two fingerprints are the same, right? And it's like, I am allowed to explore what my pinky is doing versus what my index is doing. And yes, I do believe that we all have our own interpretations of art and how we reproduce, because I don't think in today's age, nobody's producing anything. We're all reproducing things, right?
But the result is unique every time.
Yeah,
You don't think?
I don't think there's nothing unique.
But the thing is, my counter to that
Go
is
for
that
it.
every new idea that we give birth to is a product of our own precise influences which have never existed together before. So if I, for example, have grown up listening to Mac Miller, Iranian music, passively hearing Chinese music, all of these things, they birth something that does not exist.
Yeah, but that's not unique. It may be unique to you, but there are at least 400,000 other people with a very similar trajectory in life, right?
Okay.
I don't think that with 8 billion people on this earth, that you are the only one with that idea. That's why I always say, ideas belong to the first to produce.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah,
Because that's
I agree
why
with
you
that.
could sit there with an idea and then don't do anything, and then a couple of days later, oh my God, I had that same idea.
Mm-hmm.
How did that happen? No, ideas belong to all of us until somebody produces and acts on it, right?
Yeah.
So as much as you may have this unique upbringing, you have a conversation with enough people, you go, oh my God, my mom used to do the same thing. How did we have the same childhood? Right?
Yeah.
And we are on opposite ends of the world. That's why I'm saying that there's nothing unique. It may be unique to you, which is beautiful in its own right, but in the largest scheme of things, there's nothing unique.
I think that's how people can connect with music that they
Absolutely.
didn't write.
Absolutely. That's why I can sit there and listen to X Factor by Lauryn Hill and bawl my eyes out at 11 years old, having not lived enough to understand what heartbreak was. And she's talking about this toxic relationship she has, but it's just the sonics and the voice and the tone and everything just speaks to me. I could sit at the age of 17, listen to New Danger by Mos Def in Germany, laying in bed, bawling my eyes out when he says, "Woman, I love you." And I take that 20 years later and put it in my song, right? And I'm going, that moment in time made me feel as though I was in this relationship with this girl. And I was too young to have a meaningful relationship. But it resonated with me.
Yeah.
That 20 years later, I'm sitting in studio and I'm freestyling and I just go, "Woman, I love you." And I go, "Oh, Mos Def really touched me." It's not unique, because if you listen to that song and you go back to, what's his name? It's Percy Sledge. He's got a song in the early 70s or something. He's got a song like that where he says, "Woman, I love you." And it's such a common thread in art and in everything else that we see. That's why you could drive through this neighborhood and see buildings that you've seen somewhere before, right? We all draw inspiration from somewhere.
And with that, do you think that like authenticity, how does authenticity fit into the greater scheme of that? If we are always like, we're destined to reproduce and recreate based off of existing ideas.
So for me, there's a difference between listening and copying and reproducing. Can we cut it there? Can we get this guy to go to the car? Danny, someone give a transition, boy.
He doesn't have to go to the car. We have bedroom.
Oh,
as
okay.
well.
Yeah.
Do you want? Are you sure? It's so hot, bro.
He's not trying to fall asleep. He's waiting for his friends.
Okay.
So just not long. Sure. Because I can.
Fat naps.
Yeah, he's having a big nap. Yeah. But now there was a baby in the bedroom. Now there's snoring.
Yeah, that's the thing, guys. Podcasts at home, they're very entertaining.
Yeah.
You know, it's not always going to be like this, but I think there's something really real about starting where you actually are.
Absolutely. I mean, before I go back to what I was saying. I always say there's beauty in the tools you have, right? You can do everything with the tools you have. There's this misconception that I have to have the best. And all you have to do is start. If you're not embarrassed by your first product, you launched too late, right? And you need to go back and go, oh wow, we could have had better lighting and we could have had a better set, but you started.
Yeah.
And a lot of people don't start.
We went through that before we started.
Yeah.
And we're like, what are we doing with ourselves? Like, I was so worried about like how we're gonna get the letters together and whether my couch is good enough and whether like, again, like I think instinct, especially living in an era of tools and technology, is you want to be able to provide the best that you can. But really, you know, what the conclusion we arrived at is the only thing that matters being good is the actual conversation.
Absolutely.
And you want to take people on the ride of seeing everything else improve, including the conversation.
Absolutely.
But the conversation can't improve if you don't start. That's the thing. So here we are, and I appreciate you being here to have the conversation.
Absolutely. So I wanted to go back to what I was saying about the difference between
copying and reproducing.
Yes, and being authentic. I think there is a difference between if I'm listening to your song and I'm creating a song and I keep repeating bar for bar and recreating. Now I'm copying. But if I listen to your song and then I go, what a nice song. Maybe I can make something like that. And then I go, switch it off and I go to my computer and I make something that makes me feel the way your song made me feel. It's not going to be the same. Somebody will listen to it and say, it reminds me of other song. And I'm like, yeah, it should, because it gave me the same feeling. Right? It should be a feeling thing. And that's one of my issues that I had with the lawsuit against Pharrell versus Marvin Gaye. And he lost the lawsuit because they said it had the same feeling. And I said, if we're punishing people on feeling, then we're all in trouble. We're all in trouble. Because it's not sonically the same. The chords are not the same. The progression is similar. But the feeling obviously is going to be the same because he was probably listening to that type of music.
Yeah, for sure. And like, I believe it was Ed Sheeran.
Ed Sheeran had the same problem.
Who said he will quit music if this doesn't go like according to what he knew he was doing when he was in the studio. And I like what you're saying about like recreating feeling, because that's way harder to do. Give people the tools, give them the song, the blueprint. They won't be able to recreate the feeling very easily because you actually have to operate from a place within you. And that's I think I've said this, but one of the most striking qualities about your art for me is that you do very different things with different mediums, allowing them to fulfill their own purpose and being an extension of your self-expression in different ways. With your music, I think like you said, it's about your life experiences, entrepreneurship, love, grief, travel. Photography is, in my experience, very narrative-based, retelling history in like a futuristic sense, and even captions, something that people don't often take as an art form. I feel like you use it more than just an association or a pairing between a picture and written word, but as a means to connect and express philosophy. You've said some really beautiful and meaningful things over the years, and I've compiled some of my favorite ones.
That is funny.
I want you to like expand on them for us.
Oh my goodness. Before you do that, I would like to put a disclaimer right here and say, we're talking about feeling. A lot of the times I have transcended and I'm somewhere else, and a lot of the stuff comes out and I look back and I go, when did I write that? So this might happen.
It may not sound like originals. You're like, wait, did I say this?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, it's going to be fun. I think I also compiled some of them just because I want them to be expressed out loud and for people to know that at one point or another you did express this. And it resonated with me. It made me feel something.
Gotcha.
So, yeah, the first one, you got to see yourself the way you want to be seen. Can you expand on that?
There's this thing, I mean, I don't even know when I wrote that, but it just keeps reoccurring, right? In life, where I had this conversation the other day. I was on set, and one of the best boys asked me how long I've been directing for, and I said, directing what? And they said, commercials. And I said, this is my first year, right? And he's like, wait, what was your first commercial? I said, my first commercial was in the US. And he's like, how did you get that? I said, well, I met this lady, and she said, what do you do? I said, I'm a director. She said, okay, I might have a job for you. And that's exactly what it was. And I feel like we need to first self-affirm, right? You need to say, I am this, therefore you will see me as this. If you don't, then people will do it for you, right? And you need to be vocal about it. Because if you're not vocal about it, people will say it for you. Oh, Ava is weird. Why? Oh, I don't know. Music is out there. I don't understand it. And then because you've never explained it, right? So you need to say, this is me, this is what I do. When you hear this, this is what you'll feel. Whether you feel it or not, it's neither here nor there. If you feel something different, that's you interpreting me, and we're in a conversation now, right? And that's not from a blank canvas where you're allowed to tell me who I am.
I like that. And I much prefer to the vocabulary that's often associated with this phrase of fake it till you make it.
Yeah.
Because like starting from a position that's that negative, you also really prone to now feel like you're an imposter,
Yes.
even though you've earned where you are.
Absolutely.
And you discredit yourself, even though you're in that position. And now it's time, everyone sees you as this, and you're the one feeling like an imposter. And I think that's because that we've expressed that statement more than we've heard it in the words of, you gotta see yourself the way you want to be seen. And I really like that. That's why it's here. Second one, practice builds confidence. Now this one's very obvious, but walk us through the unobvious of how much patience, how to exert the patience required to suck at the beginning.
It's a lot like speaking a language, right? Like nobody's born knowing how to speak a language, but the more you speak it, the better you get, right? And we also live in this world where practice makes perfect. And I saw this reel a couple of months or years ago where the guy says practice makes perfect. No, it doesn't. It just makes better, right? So the more you practice, the more confident you are in anything you do, right? And then the better you sound because you're confident. It becomes second nature. I say this to say, I've been a photographer for, maybe 17 years. And there was a period where I wasn't shooting as frequently because I believe that I'll only pick up my camera when I'm getting paid to do it. And I lost touch with what's important. That when I got paid to do it, I wasn't nearly as sharp as I would have been because I have to remember all the things that I knew as second nature because I wasn't practicing. So I'd walk onto set and I was not even nearly as confident as I should have been. So had I practiced, I would have walked in there confidently. Now I'm at a point in my life where I'm constantly shooting. Like there's no moment where I'm not shooting, where I'm not writing, where I'm not conceptualizing or putting together a treatment. I also understand that I'm new to commercial directing, so I need to make sure that I'm sharp. You know, I walked into a pitch and I won the pitch and I asked the executive producer, why did I win? And she said, are you kidding me? I'm like, no, I'm just trying to make sure that I get better. So I learn. And she said, well, the guy you went up against had 4 slides, you had 36. You know what I mean? Because I'm constantly practicing that I know what I need to put into a presentation.
And I think that there's a lot of beauty in how one medium recharges the batteries required for another. So when you might be working on a pitch deck, you know, the ideas from music, which you might be resting from, when you get back to it, I believe in the muse. The muse knows you haven't been sitting there doing nothing
Exactly.
and doing nothing creative, exercising no part of creativity, because I don't think it's specific to the medium, right? If you're writing, the next time you pick up a guitar is not going to be as bad, you know? It's different if you weren't writing and then pick up a guitar after months. And so everything supports each other because, just like the creativity for me is one thing. And I also don't believe there's a creative person and like a non-creative person, because there's a creative way of doing everything.
Absolutely.
And a lot of that is, forced out of us depending on like the schooling system that we were, in, that, and then the environment we grow up in that nurtures it differently or suppresses it. But yeah, we all have it. And yeah, preparation. Preparation builds confidence. Third one. Before I go out binge drinking, I always eat a stick of butter. It doesn't do anything. I just make really poor life choices. I really just wanted to say that because it's so much fun. Like I LOL'd and like everyone I read it to LOL'd as well.
Okay, I'll say I don't drink a stick of butter. Right.
But I've heard that Americans do have that available as a snacking option.
Yes. And it's crazy. I was watching on Instagram this kid who was a D1 being university, college athlete, right? He was a D1 rower. And he was showing what he eats in a day. And he'd eat 4 sticks of butter because he needs to get his calories up. And because he burns like 4,000 calories in a sitting, right? And I was like, this is crazy. I can't believe Americans do this. And then when you say that, it reminds me that I once said I'd eat a stick of butter to go out. It does nothing because I'm not trying to increase my calories. It was just, going out meant, especially at the time, going out meant that I was no longer in charge of my decisions. And I was one with the wind. It was a very interesting time in my life. And thankfully, I also learned a lot. And I always say that it's more important to know what you don't like versus what you like. And that period taught me all the things I don't like. That's why I don't have any desires to relive that moment or that era. I go, oh, what a time. I don't even romanticize. I go, oh, what a time. It was great, but this is better.
Yeah, because the lessons stay with you, and I really like that thing about not looking for the things that you like. It's also really stressful for a lot of people who, may not have always known what they like. The pressure to find something you like, it's going to be hard, because now you look at everything with like a could you be it?
Yeah, exactly.
and then you also, it's not necessarily in front of you, but the things that you don't like give you a lot more direction. If you just trust that direction and go in the opposite way, the things you like will find you.
Absolutely.
Great. Stick of butter. I mean, I don't know, even if you are burning that many thousands of calories, it's not good for a lot of other things.
It's not.
Your cholesterol, your visceral fat, like how does this actually work?
Yeah, cholesterol is crazy. I mean, also, D1, he must have been 19.
Yeah.
At that age, he's not thinking about his cholesterol or his arteries. He's not.
I don't know who's prescribing this to him, though, because, no one, right? But, nutritional sciences can be a very kooky field.
Absolutely.
With a lot of different types of advice. Jealousy often comes in jokes. Pay attention. This one, it really, really rang home. I get it. I feel like personally, I've been in positions where I've made snarky comments and that were coming, originally, like I can feel that's jealousy. And you're like, I'm just joking, Is there more to it than that?
I've learned one thing about myself is that I'm not a jealous person, right? I think, not saying that I don't get jealous, I identify. In fact, I'm quick to identify when that feeling comes over me. Then I rechannel it, right? And I go, what benefit do I draw from being jealous? Right? I can't be envious. I go, oh, wow. How did they do that? That's the question, not why them. Because why them then breeds that nasty green envy, right? That we don't want. And then you start being snarky and
yeah, and why them, like, you can both win. Like, it doesn't have to be a zero-sum situation.
Life is not a zero-sum game, right? And I've also found that a lot of people treat it like it is. It's like, if I share with you, there's not enough for me. No. When you share and collaborate, you create more, right? And there's that age-old adage that says, if you want to go far, go together. If you want to go quick, go whatever.
African proverb.
Yes, there we go, right? And I am a firm believer that when you start shifting your perspective on why did Alva get a podcast and not me, to, is that what I want? How much work goes into that?
Do I want to look like I have a podcast?
right?
Not actually like be interested.
And then
in
if you answer those questions truthfully and the answer is, yes, that is what I want, then you go, how do I get there? Then you start working towards it, and before you know it, you've got a podcast. Whether it's going to be successful or not, doesn't matter. Are you happy? Yes. Great. Everybody wins. But if it's not what you want and you just want it because you've got it, or the other person's got it, then we're in a problem. We're in a very weird situation where you've got a problem, right? And I feel like people that are jealous, more so friends that get jealous, joke about it. And you can always tell when the joke is coming from a very nasty place or from a good place. I've been fortunate to surround myself with very strong-minded individuals, and everybody understands my time. If you've got it, it's not my time yet, right? If I have it, how do I help you? And it's always about that thing of let's help each other to get to the top, because you don't want to get to the top of the mountain and you're looking at this view by yourself. Who are you going to tell about it, right? So it's all about lifting the people around you. So we all get to the top and enjoy this view, and then when we get down, we just talk about it. Do you see how beautiful that was? Did you see that bird? No, I didn't. Oh, I've got it on this camera of mine, right? And then we've got something that we can talk about and cherish. But if we constantly doing this crabs in a bucket thing where we're pulling each other down, no one wins.
The proof is in the pudding. He is here lifting a podcast up that he has not actually seen before.
Yeah.
So it's all there, and I appreciate that. And it's, yeah, like there's always more that's created. And you can also be, skeptical about what someone's doing, but you also don't know what they're doing. So like you can be skeptical and then later on be like, oh, I should have believed in this. And
So about that, I'm a firm believer of if you see somebody doing something, help out where you can. Because I also start a lot of things. When we started Soft and the wooden stool, do you know how many emails we sent? Do you know how many DMs that were left unread? Right?
cold emails never responded
Yeah,
to.
DMs of people that we follow each other. Hey,
Yeah.
I'm starting this platform that is going to shine a spotlight on artists. Are you interested? Seen. I go, oh, okay, cool. And then season 1 drops, season 2 drops, and then they DM me. Oh, I'm just seeing this now. I'm like, sure, sure. But the ship has sailed.
Yeah.
Right? The ship has sailed. And I don't have any reservations towards you. I'm just it kind of was telling of your character, right? The least you could have done was, hey, I'm just inundated with work. I don't have the capacity. Fine. Hey, my label won't allow me to do that. Fine. Great.
Hey, can you guys make a season first and then reach out to me? At least it's honest.
Fine. Fine, right?
Yeah.
I mean, there are artists that we never reached out to because of that. We're just we need to have a proof of concept. And then we have artists like you who just came on, it was great, right? And we didn't need to all the bells and whistles for you, And the artists that you ask once, in fact, there's another artist, I won't mention any names, recently. They've been hounding me from season 2, hounding me. Now I go, okay, cool, we're shooting season 4. Are you available? Yes, no show on the day. Right? And I go, that's fine. And then the Monday, they DM me, hey, sorry, I had so much things to do, can you reshoot again? I'm like, no, we're done. We're done. And this
No show?
No show, no explanation. It's okay. They try to explain it after the fact, right? But it's okay. I don't hate them. I'm just we had a set schedule. Because we've been doing it for so long, we know what we're doing.
Yeah.
So we'll allocate a day and then we shoot X amount of episodes on that day. Do we have enough episodes? No. Okay, cool. We'll open up another weekend, shoot X amount of episodes, and then we're good. Then we're pretty much good for the year, right? And there's this idea that the wooden stool gets shot throughout the year. No.
Yeah, it's a Saturday. From this hour to this
that hour.
this many people come through
Yeah.
in this order.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
then it's done. And then we'll see you next year. So that's why we always urge artists to give us the songs that, one, haven't been released, or songs that will never get a video. So it'll sit on your project, and then when we drop it, people go, ooh, I remember that song, but there was no marketing budget towards it, right? And I think it allows us to help out the artist as well, just to give you longevity off this one project where people listen to it and then they Shazam it and go listen and give you streams and all these other beautiful things that we make no money off. We're like an NPO, right?
No, it really is.
And we looking for government funding. Kidding.
But also, if you're offering, no one's saying.
Yeah, I mean, I had a conversation with the guys and we're talking about, okay guys, we've been doing this thing since pre-pandemic, right? And we haven't approached any sponsors, no sponsors have approached us. I mean, we've had conversations with a lot of people coming in and out, but as soon as it's time to put pen to paper, the deal looks very shaky. And we're like, no, right? And we realized that it's probably because the format of the show doesn't allow, this is something that I might even just share with you guys. The format needs to allow room for brands, right? So you need to, maybe if it's even one episode where you kind of show where the branding would sit.
Okay.
You know, when you package it and go to a brand and say, this is where your brand will sit. We'll have a banner that flies at 20 minutes or at 5 minutes and then at 15 minutes and then at 35 minutes. That's how your brand will be there. Or we'll organically get Ava to say something about your brand where it feels like it's in conversation. So if as soon as you start designing the framework of how the brand lives within your product, then they go, ooh, there's space for us. This is how much money we have. Is that enough? Because that's the kind of conversation you want. You don't want, oh, we only have this. And then it's like they don't value you. Then you keep it moving.
And then also by accepting it, you don't know what else you have to now, do, what you can't say, what you have to offer on, especially if they're like, this is all we have, then expect that they actually control the terms.
Absolutely.
And now you owe them.
Absolutely.
Compliance to some extent. Yeah.
Somewhat related to that, one of my mentors said to me, do it for free, do it for full price, but never do it for cheap. Because when you do it for cheap, that is your rate. If you do it for free, the person knows it's a favor. If you do it for your full price, that's your price.
I think that's really solid advice for any creatives, whether they're musicians, whether they work behind the scenes, whether they're photographers, videographers. It applies to all of us in different ways.
Yeah.
Shout out, guys. Shout out, team.
Yeah.
There's two more. Hard pill to swallow. Whatever you're not changing, you are choosing. I think it's really good lifestyle advice. Do you remember what you were talking about?
No, I don't. And I think, given the current climate right now, with what's happening around the world, and I saw a tweet or a meme that said, if you ever wondered what you would have done during slavery, during the freedom rights movement, during the Holocaust, you're currently doing it. So if you're just sitting there and not participating, that's what you would have done, right? And if you choose to not get involved, what did that quote say again?
Hard pill to swallow. Whatever you're not changing, you're
choosing. Exactly. So if you're not getting involved for change, then you're choosing for pain. You're choosing pain, right, for others and suffering. And I'm very vocal. I mean, I've had multiple conversations in my DMs with people that believe that I need to educate myself because I speak for an oppressed people, because I was once an oppressed person, right? And I've had multiple. I mean, I've also learned that I know a plethora of people from different walks of life, right? And unfortunately, when you are standing for something, you rub other people the wrong way. And I think the idea here is not to be afraid, right? And say it with your chest. If you feel like I feel passionate and strongly about the oppressive state that Palestine is in, I do not care. If you were thinking of giving me this $1 million contract and you saw me write Free Palestine and you're going, I'm going to pull that, I do not care. Because I go to sleep knowing that I don't owe anybody anything. And if I was to die, I lived an honest life, right?
There goes our theoretical sponsors.
Right? No, but that goes to that whole thing of you saying if you do it for a certain amount, they own you, right? If you're going to get a sponsor who's going to oppress you, it's the same kind of thing.
Yeah, for sure. And like I think, conceptually when I had the idea of starting a podcast, I knew that I wanted this to be an independent enterprise where like the long game is not like who can give us the most money, because then you are relinquishing freedom no matter who it is, right? So yeah, I also think that like it's easy for people to imagine that if they were just in a different time frame and era, that they would just suddenly be a lot more courageous than like they are now. But courage is something that requires skin in the game.
Yeah.
And we all have to be willing to put up a decent amount of it for the things that we believe are right, which, I didn't want to speak about this, but this is where my criticism of Trevor Noah right now, as someone we all expect a lot from, is on this whole issue. I think the more you set yourself up as someone who's a voice of reason and humanity and nuance, and you're a political analyst and your comedy relies a lot on political narratives, then your silence, it doesn't mean you're not a good person. I just think, okay, who hires you that you can't say, what you would otherwise say? And
you know what? I believe we're all entitled to take care of our families, right? And how you do it, whether it be questionable or not, is for you to deal with, right? I am not one to say, but you need to speak up. I go, that's your prerogative. I am going to speak up, right? Whether it be that you've been so vocal about other issues and you're not about this issue, that's neither here nor there. I'm not the issue police. I'm not going to make sure that everybody speaks up. I don't care. As long as I am doing my part and me doing my part inspires somebody else to do theirs, right? So I don't like to point fingers and say this is what you're supposed to be doing and why aren't you doing it, because then we end up in a very weird place where people feel like they're being attacked for not speaking up on something they can't relate to or are not involved in, right? Because a lot of people go, yeah, but it's not my fault. I'm like, yeah, it's never really anybody's fault. If we're being honest, there's a group of people at the top who decide how we live our lives, and we are just in the simulation and we're just making sure we survive, right? We don't change any policies, we don't move the needle. We've just been put in this game and they said, play, and we're playing, right? So I'm just like, I'm gonna do the best I can, and I'm gonna make sure that I provide for my family and look after my friends and all these other things. And everything else is for the bird.
Express what's true to you.
Absolutely.
And stand by it.
Stand by it.
Yeah, I like that. No offense, Trevor.
No offense.
We love you.
I just had to be on the podcast episode where you talk about Trevor. Oh.
It's been all love. It will continue to be all love. But I think, that's just something we also associate with people where they've often been our voices. And like music, and like Lauryn Hill could tell your story without being in the position of telling your story, she's telling her story. We've often been represented by people bigger than us who've managed to tell our stories well for us. And so there always is room for expectations to grow during that scenario. But to our last quote, and this one is really special.
Ooh.
Acceptance. Things change. Everything changes except for the love of God. I'm living in this quiet realization of what is meant for me will be, and what is not meant for me will not. There's so much peace in knowing and accepting that the plans that God has for us are greater than those we could ever imagine for ourselves. Have you always believed in
I
that?
wrote that?
Yeah.
Wow. Wow.
If you like my narrating voice,
I think that's what makes it different. Yeah, because that voice doesn't sound like the voice of me.
Have you always believed in God?
Yes, I have. I think my relationship with God is one where the moment I realized that my relationship with God is like my relationship with my dad, right? Then I started viewing him differently, right? Not to say that I see my dad as a God. I just see God as my dad, right? And I find that the way I communicate with him would be the way I communicate with my dad. And back in the day on Twitter, I said something, bra God. And it caused an uproar, right? How could you do that? That's so blasphemous. And I said, why? I'm not calling him out of his name.
My God doesn't take offense to this.
Yeah, I'm like, bra God is like a term of endearment between him and I. He gets it. My dad, I call him Doc. I don't call him Dad. He gets it. When I'm on the phone with my dad, people think I'm on the phone with my friend. And I'm like, that's exactly how it should be. When I'm talking to God, it should be as though I'm talking to my friend that I respect. You know, because a lot of the time I find people make him out to be this fearful, huge thing that we can't connect with. And I'm like, no.
That sees you. It's like a Santa situation.
Right.
Like he knows if you've been bad,
So
but like you don't really know the bra.
For me, it's not even like Santa. For me, it's like being in a room with the camera. So, I can't take that jelly because God is... No, dude, like... It's there because God said take it, right? Ask him if it's okay. Is it okay? And then he'll tell you if it's okay or not. If you feel that it's not okay, don't do it. That's him telling you, right? And the moment I started living my life that way, the more I moved away from jealousy. The more I moved away from wanting it now, instant gratification. This is a beautiful recap for the entire conversation, right? And the more I moved into a space of actualization, of if I don't have it, I will have it if I have to, or if I'm meant to, right? And for instance, we moved from New York and we went to Atlanta and things were tough, right? And my wife says, maybe you should go get a job. Just to put things into perspective, since leaving high school, I've never had a job. So I've never had a pink slip, I've never had a boss, I've never had all these things. And now I'm sitting there with this weird reality in front of me going, I need to get a job. And then she says, yeah, my friend works at this place. Here's a link, go fill out this form and then apply. I'm like, oh my God, how do I put together a CV? So I need to go how to put together a CV, ChatGPT put together a CV, right? So I do all these things and I submit and, you need a cover letter. Oh, how do I write a cover letter, right? And I get a call back to in person. I'm like, okay, cool. And then I get invited by this lady who's a producer. We have lunch, the one who said, what do you do? And I said, I'm a director. We have lunch. And then I leave that lunch and then she says, okay, cool, I'll let you know. But that lunch was scheduled the same time I was supposed to go into my in-person interview, right? And I had to make a decision. I said, God, what do you want me to do? And in that moment, there was silence, right? Because we think that God's going to go, yeah, we'll go to the interview. In that moment, there was silence, and I just said, I'm going to go to the lunch. And I went to the lunch. My wife was upset. She didn't voice it. She tells me after the fact, after I've shot my first commercial, and she goes, you know that day, I was so upset. And I said, I get it, right? She's like, you've got this ability of just moving by faith. And I'm like, yes, because I make room for God, right? And we often don't make room for God in our lives, and we just look to him when we're in trouble. Mm-hmm. And that should never be the case. We should often just go, okay, God, I'm bored. What do you think I should be up to? And he goes, you haven't played the guitar in a while. And we think it's our own thought. And it's just like, no, he's talking through us, right?
Yeah.
And I've got this, I had this conversation with my dad years ago about the Bible, which was very, contentious, right? I said, there was a time where I was like, yeah, I'm battling to believe in church and believe in the Bible. And he said, explain, unpack that for me. And I said, the Bible has all these things and we're not allowed to question them. Why? And he said, because it's the word of the Lord. Then I said, okay, if it's the word of the Lord, was God physically writing it? No. he inspired men to write it, right? And I said, okay, cool. If that's the case, did God change the way he speaks to us? Because they were clearly hearing him, like clearly, right? No, he didn't change the way he speaks to us. And what makes those words more godlike than the words that I put down? He didn't have an answer for me, right? And I sat with it and I said, God continuously speaks to us. And when you have ideas and you are speaking to yourself, you're speaking to God, right? And a lot of the times people say, yeah, but does God speak to, does he not speak to people who do crime, right? And I go, no, he does. But people who do crime don't have an opposing thought in their head. When they think something, they don't listen to any other opposing thought. And that's why they do that, right? And I go, the moment you start accepting the fact that the voice in your head is the voice of God, that is when you will start moving with purpose.
I think that's really, really beautiful. And also like letting there be room for you to have your own relationship with God and not having it conform to the 3 Abrahamic religions and how they go about it or any specific doctrine. You're also allowed to take the best of everything that resonates with you and live by that. Because if you're living by what you deem to be good, you're good. You're good. And I'm so glad you brought up the guitar, because for me that was like a callback on like the creativity thing.
Yeah.
You know, like you have to sit there and like want to be creative. And if you visit that place enough, you will be creative.
You will be.
And if you allow that much room to exist, the thoughts will come to you. And your intuition will actually guide you better than any other voice could.
Absolutely.
I really like that. Thank you. Thank you for that. I have 2 questions about your recent life story. 2 years ago, you moved homes and continents, having to limit your belongings to your carry-on and 1 checked luggage. See this as your GQ moment. What are 10 things Lebo Lukewarm can't live without? It doesn't have to be 10. It's very strict. What comes to mind?
Well, I think for me, one of the reasons why I moved was because having the conversation with my wife, it was a lot easier for me to move with my set of skills and get transplanted somewhere else, right? And to answer your question, is my camera bag, right? And my camera bag has 3 cameras in it and my laptop. And that's pretty much my net worth, right? It's if you want to destabilize my economy, you take that bag, okay? And then I'm done, right? So that's the one thing that I have to have with me. And everything else is
normal.
Yeah, everything else is normal. T-shirt, jeans, sneakers.
Okay.
Yeah, but
I could. Camera bag.
my camera bag
Your tools, the
notebook,
tools of your craft.
a notebook, a pen, a hard drive, 3 cameras, and a laptop.
Do you go through like any extraneous measure to make sure that those few things are always safe?
No,
No.
they're always on me.
Okay.
Yeah, they're just always on me. Like even if I park somewhere, like now it's on me, right? And I've like compressed it. The cameras are at home, and I've got my laptop, right? And that's because anything can happen, and I can sit there and go, oh, let me go to a coffee shop, and then I start working. As a creative, we've got this like weird, warped idea that when I call on inspiration, it will come. And a lot of the time, it just hits you. And
Inspiration's like lol.
yeah, right? And a lot of the time, it just hits you. And if you don't have any medium to jot it down, whether it be a pen, a laptop, a phone, notebook, whatever, then you lose it, right? It's that divine inspiration moment, right? And
You have to be there to catch.
yeah, right. So I always make sure that I've got at least something I can pen or type or whatever. Otherwise, I lose it. I'm a big advocate of voice notes. There's some voice notes I haven't listened to since recording them. And then I sit and then it's like, oh, 2021, what's this? Like, oh my God, this is so good, right? And
Like these quotes. You're like,
Right?
wow, can I get a copy of those?
I need a copy of those. And I'm like, when we're worried about material things, we lose it. I think for me, especially now where I'm at, I was actually saying the other day that I can't wait to go back to the States. And not because I'm sick of South Africa. I'm just sick of not having a routine, right? And the thing that we overlook as creatives, and it's the thing that 9 to 5ers have, is that they know that Monday to Friday, from 9 to 5, they have to be at this place. So they can design their life during the week around those hours. Whereas as a creative, no 2 days are the same, right? So you have to create your own routine, because that's why, just a segue, the Chinese water torture technique works so well, because it's designed around removing the rhythmic patterns, right? So the drops don't hurt. It's just your brain trying to figure out when the next one is coming.
They can't figure it out.
So when you know that, and you live your life knowing that your brain has to figure out what's next, then you lose sight of what's important. But when you start designing your life around a routine, I know that in the morning I have to go to the gym for 45 minutes. And that's a 45-minute walk. And then I go home, I eat breakfast, I shower, and then I open my laptop. Then I do my day. Lunchtime I eat, and then in the evening I go to gym at 7. That's an hour to an hour 30. Then I come home, eat, shower, and go to bed, right? The days are like that, 6 days a week, right? If I don't do that, then I'm not thinking about what I need to do next. I don't have a structure. I'm just floating. And then I wake up at 10. And then next day I wake up at 12.
And you may not have to work out
and
because
then
you woke up at 10.
Exactly.
And it's already not 6 o'clock.
Exactly. And that's where I'm at right now, right? Where I'm winding down and I'm like, oh, I don't feel like going to the gym. And then I have to constantly remind myself that it's okay. Because I've been going to the gym since Jan. And I'm like, it's okay if I'm not going to the gym right now. Because I know as soon as I go back to the States, I'll have a routine and I'll go to the gym again.
I think that's the thing is, you can very easily become captive to your routines as well. It's like, does your day control you or do you control your day? And this is just something I wrestle with, not only as a creative, but someone who enjoys routine. And this is something I've observed in everyone I know who really loves routine. No matter at what level of performance, you don't really know how to enjoy holidays as much unless you create a routine even for that. So you're like, what?
No, but
how can I bring structure
that's the beautiful
to everything?
thing, right? That's a beautiful thing about structure, is that no matter where you put it, it should still work, right?
Yes.
If you work out in the morning, 5 a.m., by 6 a.m., you're done with the one thing that'll loom over your head if you don't get it done, right? You're done with it. And then I can do whatever I want.
And the beauty of it is it's opened me up to doing things in places that I wouldn't otherwise be doing. I've had this streak of working out every day going since January 1st, 2019. Even through 2 COVID diagnoses, I persisted against the best advice of my boyfriend, who was very worried about me getting, what is it called? Myocarditis. Very real problem.
Yeah.
Don't do this at home. But it's because I have to do it every day, and it doesn't matter how big or small it is, because it's an everyday thing. I find myself, we're going to a wedding in the Free State. Okay, cool. The next morning, before we get in the car, I'm gonna go for a run. And now I'm running around in neighborhoods I would never be running in. If I didn't have the vessel of running, I would not be out there. I'd be sleeping an extra hour. But I plan my day, and it's allowed me to see new places.
Absolutely.
Especially when I'm away. It's a way for me to be a tourist in a place. It's like, okay, cool, at least I can go exploring. Whether it's 10 minutes, 15 minutes, or 20, I get to see things I otherwise wouldn't have seen, especially because I don't like walking, like as a means of, I wouldn't necessarily just go for a stroll.
I get it. It's very interesting to hear other people's workout routines. And I'm like, I don't run. I'm like, I don't run at all. Like not that I hate running. I used to be a very strong runner. I played like contact sport my whole life, and my knees are like the graveside, right? And I'm just like, running really hurts me. So I walk. I walk between 30 and 45 minutes on a treadmill at an incline of incline of 12. So it's really steep.
Plus, also not living in South Africa, you walk a whole lot more, and it's baked into your routine.
That's like the myth, right?
Not even about New York?
That's only in New York.
Only in New York.
Yeah, everywhere else you drive.
So with Atlanta, which is where you're currently living, yes? You've drawn this analogy between Joburg and Atlanta. Like,
Yes.
walk me through it. How are they similar? What makes it feel like home?
I think the diversity of the demographics, right? There are moments where it feels as though I'm in Joburg, just based off the people that I'm surrounded by, right? And also because it's a driving city. And it's strange because even the mentality is the same. I often say that Atlanta reminds me of Johannesburg in 2012, right? And no one ever seems to understand what I mean. And I'm like, in 2012, we had a whole bunch of pie and not enough creatives. And all these creatives were going in and there was so much pie. Now we have very little pie and a lot of creatives. Whereas in Atlanta, there's an even bigger pie and not enough creatives, right? Even though there's a lot of creatives, the pie is so big that it feels like there aren't enough creatives. There's so much room for anything that I'm even kind of carving out a niche for myself. And I'm like, if I was to start again in Johannesburg, it would be a nightmare because I don't know where I'd start, you know? And a lot of the time I've got young guys who ask me like, how do I do this? How do I start? And I'm like, the number one advice I'll give you is start, right? Mm-hmm. And people will come. If you build it, they'll come. If they don't come, tweak, right? That's it, but start. Whereas in Atlanta, there are still pockets that don't have. And you're just like, how? And that's because it's a lot bigger, you know? So we're all surrounded in the square mile of Sandton, right? And we think that's the be all and end all. I know we all say. But honestly, in the South, if you think about the media space in the South, how big of an industry is it?
I don't imagine big at all.
Exactly. So then you are sitting in the South and going, how do I find the pie and how do I make sure that it's mine? Because nobody's doing it. And if they aren't doing it at scale. So there's room for you, right? And that's exactly what it is in Atlanta. The only difference is that any part of it you're in, we're the south of Atlanta. So any part you're in, you could start it and you could actually be the guy, you know?
So the land of dreams and opportunity is alive in the creative space.
Yes, but I mean, I'll say going to LA, I know I've moved states and all these other things, but going to LA, I got to witness what shattered dreams look like at a tangible level, where you're walking down West Hollywood and you're just walking past a lot of homeless people, right? They've got a homelessness issue, right?
Epidemic of sorts.
You're walking past a lot of homeless people and you look at one and you go, I can see that you came here with the dreams of being in front of camera. You know, you can kind of see the kind of person that's there and it's just like, what happened, right? Because a lot of the times when we encounter like the less fortunate, we don't ever ask ourselves, what's the backstory? What happened? You know, like how did you end up there? Or how did you start there? Because we think maybe somebody fell from grace and they didn't. Maybe they were just not given the opportunities, right? So I often find myself, as much as it's a land of opportunity, I think it's a land of opportunity for me in that it's a new narrative. You know, it's a new thing I can look at and go, how do I interpret this versus an American interpreting this? Because they are probably seeing a problem, right? Mm-hmm. And when they look at Africa, they see the big-bellied kwashiorkor kid with flies around them, and that's the idea of Africa. And I'm going, no, come here, you'll understand. And they come here and they go, oh, wow. And they go back and they tell this different story, right? And I'm like, as a creative, the opportunity lies in going somewhere else and seeing the difference and finding the correlations. Where do the similarities overlap? Where's the story? That's the story. All right? And that for me is where my gap is. Where people go, yeah, but you're from Africa. What do you know? And then I go, okay, cool. But ask about me. Ask about my interests. And then they do, oh, what is your first album? And I go, oh, my dad bought me Snoop Dogg Doggy Style in '93. And they go, wait, what? The year it dropped? And I'm like, yes. We had things. You know, we're not like a very secluded, remote little village with no electricity. I use that loosely. I use that loosely. But it's that thing of when you identify the similarities, like I've just said, when you identify the similarities, you get the narrative, you get your opportunity. So I don't like saying it's a land of opportunity because I've seen a lot of broken dreams.
I think also the unique vantage point of being in a position where you have a beautiful wide perspective on what the opportunity means. Like you said, it's not just like, okay guys, everybody move to Atlanta, let's just take the Joburg entertainment industry and copy and paste it in Atlanta. Yeah. But being an outsider that can relate, and based off of those similarities that you mentioned, you then know what is universal, but you also have a unique perspective or a fresh perspective on how this story can be retold, or a new story can be told. If you actually believe new stories can be told, you know, that's a separate chat.
You know me. I mean, there's a new trend now in storytelling where they're doing a predictive forecasting, right?
Okay.
I don't know if you've seen. They did it with The Matrix. They been doing it with The Simpsons.
Okay, sure, yes, absolutely, and South Park.
Yes, and South Park, right? And it's when I speak of the higher ups that control everything, me and my conspiracy theories, there is a message they want to tell you, so when it happens, you're not scared. Like, oh, I saw this. When the end of days, we have to get bunkers and tin cans and all these other things. Mm-hmm. When it happens, you go, oh, I saw this, I should have been prepared. But we shouldn't have been prepared for that, right?
Like, who was trying to prepare you for that?
Exactly.
It's funny, because like now, like dystopian like films and like the genre itself is no longer dystopian, because we're like, yeah, we can see this happening.
Exactly.
This seems rational.
Exactly.
And like they stopped making Black Mirror. They did recently release a season, but it almost felt too lifelike. Like when the first season came out, that shit would like actually concern you, and you're like, I hope we don't go in this direction. This is terrifying. Yeah. By the sixth season, it's like, oh, this is like quite realistic.
Yeah.
And then imagine having a very utopian movie being built, like, or made, this narrative being told seriously. You'd be like, no, this is something off.
Exactly.
Why is this? What's gonna go wrong?
Exactly.
It's too good to be true. Yeah. Which says something.
So that's why I'm saying there are no new stories.
Yeah.
I mean, this is a new way of telling the story of predictive forecasting.
Yeah, fair enough. I can agree with that. You were mentioning routine and like looking forward to going back home, working out, everything like that. Like, was there, like, what if anything was a catalyst in your life when it came to fitness?
Like fitness is so personal, you know, and I think we all have and should have our own relationships with our bodies, right? And when you start doing that, you realize that it seeps into your mind as well. Where I think for me, I sat there and I just looked at myself and I was like, this is not the body I'm going to die in, right? And I was like, I refuse. Did we lose air?
No, we good. It's happened before. It's funny.
Okay.
It's funny if it does.
I just sat there and I said, this is not the body I'm going to die in. I need to do something. And then I started eating correctly. And then I just started going to gym with no pressure. Because I had a 24-month goal. And I often find a lot of people, especially when they're starting out, they go, oh, 6-week abs. And I'm like, it doesn't work like that. It doesn't work like that.
It takes longer to establish a real routine and habit.
Exactly, right? So I did so I've got a 24-month, I'm on a 24-month program, right? Coming down here has set me back a month, which is okay, because it's not a real 24 months. It's one that I set for myself.
Yeah, you're curating it.
Yeah.
You're the designer.
So when I started it, I designed an 8-week program. And every day I was going to the gym, the first week, every day I was going to the gym designing this program. And then I've got my splits, because I've been working out, I've been training my whole life. I've been involved in sports some way or another. And cool, it was great. And then I reached out to a friend of mine who's now turned into a business partner. And I said, I want to take this thing seriously. He's like, yeah, I can see you're serious about it this time around. And he's like, what's the goal? I said, I don't want to look like I bodybuild. I want to be functional. He's like, okay, cool. Try this. It was a 12-week program. Try this 12-week program. I did it. It was challenging. And then he says, okay, cool. Here's a 6-week program. It's hell. I'm like, okay, cool. It can't be that bad. It was hell. Right? And
You should have known he said it as well.
yeah, so it was hell. And in doing that, because it was 2 days a week. I mean, 2 times a day, sorry.
Oh, 2 times a day. That's already hell.
It was hell. And he's got me tracking my macros. We realized that I was under eating. And I was like, I wasn't even aware I was under eating. So we got us to a nice place of at least 2,000 calories. And still, it was not enough for the workout I was doing. I was constantly tired. And I just said, I can't do this. He said, push, you've got 1 more week. I did the 1 more week, and then I flew to South Africa. Then I kept doing it, but I'm eating differently now. Then I've realized that I've packed on mass. I've been doing a dirty bulk, and it wasn't the plan. So I sent him pictures, and he was just like, what's going on here? Are we bulking or are we cutting? Because it was a cutting cycle, right? He's like, are we bulking or are we cutting? I was like, it's the same program, I'm just eating differently, right? And I think, just to get back to my catalyst, was that I just wanted different for myself. I wanted more. I wanted to be able to not feel gassed when I do something. To be able to just bend over and my knees not crack. And it's just as soon as I started doing that, and then I was like, yeah, my relationship with food has to change as well. And then I stopped fearing food. My wife has this thing where she was fearing food. And I'm like, don't fear it. Eat it, knowing what it is you're eating, right? Mm-hmm. Because the moment you realize what it is you're eating, then you're not scared of it. You eat it in moderation.
Having room for grace with yourself so that you don't have to beat yourself up and enjoy the cake.
Absolutely, right? So in this process, my friend Cyril and I decided, okay, cool, we're going to figure out how we can get involved in the fitness ecosystem, right? Because there's no point in us because he's an attorney by day and a bodybuilder by night. He's currently training.
That's an origin story.
Yeah. He's currently training to get his pro card, his IFBB pro card, right? And I was like, I don't want that. Right? I want something else. I want to be functional. I want to be more athletic. If you want me to chase you, I'll catch you kind of guy, right? And we said, okay, cool. What can we do? So we came together and we just developed this product called Assegai, right? Where we're launching with a whey protein and a fat burner. And we also realized that there's this misconception of fat burners that they're for weight loss. And we're like, yes, they're for weight loss, but they're not for morbidly obese people. They are also for athletes that want to lose inches, right? And you can't just take a fat burner and not do anything. Because what it does, ours has a thermogen and it increases your core temperature that you sweat and burn more, right? So you take it much like you take your pre-workout so that you sweat and burn more. So it helps you lose.
You have to do the hard work.
You have to do the hard work. Yeah, you can't
Sorry,
just take
guys.
it. Right? Exactly. So we're in this beautiful space now, especially with the two of us as Assegai, and we believe that it's more of a lifestyle than it is a means to an end, because it doesn't compound, right? You work out, you could work out for 10 years and stop here. It's not like you're going to have that body. You got to constantly maintain, right? And
the same way you eat every day. It's like it has to
Absolutely.
become like just.
Absolutely. And I'm trying to, like, I get a lot of people in my DMs asking me about stuff fitness related, and I think it's interesting because
I have a lot of people in your DMs asking you a lot of things.
I mean, maybe I've got an open door policy, right? So it's like, ask away, I don't have a problem, right? And with fitness, it doesn't have to be difficult. And people think, because you see this trend on Instagram with people lifting benches, and it's like, what are you doing? Why are you benching a chair? Like, what are we doing right now, right? And it's like, it doesn't have to be that. Yes, getting to a particular point is very difficult. The hardest part is the maintenance. That maintenance work, that's the hardest part. You know, we all know it's relatively easy to buy a car, but to make sure that you get all your services in, that's the difficult part. Oh, I'll take it next week. And then all of a sudden your car breaks down, right? So the maintenance work is not difficult physically. It's just mentally it is, because you constantly have to motivate yourself. There's nobody checking for you.
Well, you also hopefully do it up to a point where like now you actually feel bad. Mentally, you feel like a piece of shit if you don't do it. Like people think like, oh, you know, like people who work out every day, you know, like some of the biggest, fittest people that you know are like, just like they can't wait to go back to the gym. No, it's the anxiety that drives you there. And that's why anxiety is not like an all bad thing. You just have to allow it to drive you to where you want to go. And yeah, it doesn't get easier. That's kind of why it's worth it. It's, you just have to do it.
I'll tell you what my driver is. My driver is fear, right? And my fear stems from, if I don't work out and I want to go back, that lactic acid pain where my entire body is sore and I can't sit down. I hate that period. So that's my fear. I don't want to go to that period. That's why I will do 50 push-ups in the morning. I'll do 50 jumping jacks, 50 squats, and then I'll get my day going if I don't go to the gym. Because I know that if I just sit idle, I'm going to regret it.
Yeah, fear. I think fear is a really good driver. If you just listen to it and not constantly run away from it, like
you
directly.
can't run away from it.
Because like for me now, like working out has become a mental crutch as much as it's physical. It has just done so much for my mental health and keeping like a balance going, you know, like an actual flow going with it. And the most important thing for me is also getting away from the fear of, okay, cool, well, like, who cares if, like, last night, for example, I indulged a lot in curry with roti and rice. And, like, today, if I know I'm going back, I can maybe add 5 reps. But the fact that I'm going back and then I'm going back tomorrow, irrespective of whether I ate super clean or not, I know I'm going back. I don't actually need to, like, I don't say a lot of things with certainty, but this I can say with certainty that I know in 6 days I'm still going to work out. And I've gotten, you know, it's taken years to get to the point where I can say that with confidence. And the fear is still the driver, you know? Fear of not enjoying the curry because I'm already punishing myself for it and going to punish myself for it the next day. And yeah, guys, let fear drive you.
I was actually I know I'm going to drag this conversation a bit. I was at a very weird or interesting point with my diet, and I got to a point where I didn't have any cheat meals because I had a cheat meal and then I went to the gym the next day and it affected my performance, and I was like, no, I don't want to do that because I felt weak. So then that drove me away from all the cheat meals. Like, I don't want to eat this ice cream. I don't want to eat this because if I do, it's going to affect my performance.
And also how you feel, because like the cleaner you eat, the more it hits you when you actually indulge. Like we were actually just having a conversation about this like earlier. Like we've all, you know, pretty much done keto and tried ketosis at one point or another. And it spoils carbs. Now when you are trying to enjoy them, they knock you. Now you have to nap every hour or after everything that you eat. And it's just not sustainable. And I think, you know, like everyone should go out of their way at one point or another to remove the one thing, the one edible vice that they really derive joy from. What?
What's your thing?
What's my thing? Savory, complex carbohydrate-y snacks. Like like your potato
chips. Savory, complex carbohydrates. Potato chips.
Potato chips used to be. Yeah, and like the thing is, it's savory foods, right? Like I really like pizzas and burgers and, you know, fries and all of those things. For me, were a bigger thing than sweets. Oof. I'm not a sweet tooth. I love desserts. I love everything. But my problem was, you know, snacking and munchies. Munchies. Munchies really has, you know, yeah, it's affected my life, and I've had to navigate through that. And we're out. We're good. We're good. Munchies are, it's okay. You must indulge when you want.
Absolutely.
We have a recurring segment on this podcast called Rep Caviar, where we ask you to tell us.
Rep, R-E-P? R-E-P?
R-E-P, yeah. R-E-P, yeah. We want to know about what you listen to when you work out. What are your favorite workout jams?
Oh, that's interesting. I've hit a point in my workout where I don't work out with music.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah,
everyone surprises us.
Yeah.
Shit, man. Like, it's been accidental for me every time it's happened. Other than on runs. Because, like, you can reach this really cool flow where, like, you're breathing, you get desensitized to it, and, like, it starts forming a pattern, and, like, you listen to that. But I've, like, only done it out of, like, it hasn't been a choice thing. Yeah, because I've forgotten something. But, so you don't have any favorite workout jams?
I don't listen to music.
This is really interesting. Yeah. Because I was hoping to ask you if you listen to your own music.
No.
And, like, every person who I've so far asked this question of has surprised us in a way I just didn't see coming.
Yeah.
Yeah, fascinating. Well, you know, the songs would have been compiled into the Good Sports' very own official playlist. But now that you've left me with this, I'm going to go back to the 3 songs he did mention earlier on in conversation.
Yeah, that's fine.
Including the Lauryn Hill one.
That's fine.
And we're going to add those to the playlist. But let people know you don't work out to these.
No. I mean, I think there's like a sense of knowing yourself. Where you have to, I feel like people who listen to music, if it's your thing, it's your thing. It's a cheat code. It's like juicing. Because then if you can't hit that rep, that 808 pushes you through it. And I'm like, for me, if I can't hit that rep, I have to push myself through it. So I grunt and I moan and I make all sorts of noises in the gym.
That must be very fun to be around.
I mean, you know, it's like...
At least you hear yourself. There's some people who, because they can't hear themselves...
They're even louder, right?
They're even louder, and they're, like, blissfully unaware of it. No, I get that. I really respect it. And it's true. The 808s do get me going. And like, also, I do like to try all my own music, because I'm like, how does this make me feel? Do I lose focus when I'm listening to this and working out? Like, it's an environment for me to really test out things. Like, if I was in the studio the day before, and I'm like, oh my God, I haven't listened to this on earphones yet. Like, it becomes an opportunity for me to, like, engage with my music differently. Yeah. And sometimes, like, punish the same song. And, you know, guys, you have to consume your own music. Like, it's important in general. Whether you're working out, do you not consume your own music?
Pre-release, I do.
Pre-release?
Post-release, I don't.
Really?
Yeah.
Interesting. Why?
Post-release, I'll listen to it, like, first week.
Okay.
And then, because it sounds different on DSPs.
Yes.
And then I'm done.
You're done. Like, if it comes up, so you don't have it downloaded, like, it doesn't, shuffle never brings up your music?
No, I don't listen to my Apple or Spotify like that.
Okay.
I always go to an album and I listen to that. I rinse an album properly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Like, I've gone back to the old way of listening to albums where you could listen to an album for 2 months.
Sure. Like, as if you own the CD and you're like, this is the CD we have, so this is the CD we listen to.
Like, in my older years, I've become a very old man.
Okay.
Like, I'm going back to the traditional ways of doing things. Like,
that's cool. Like,
I listen to albums for a month or 2, and then I move on to the next one. Right now, I'm listening to Yusuf Day's incredible body of work. I think it's called The Black Classics, something like that. Incredible body of work.
I'll check it out.
Yeah. And
maybe it'll help me get through my last few reps. Like, who knows?
No 808s. No 808s.
You don't know what gets me going.
Absolutely. I mean, I've got a friend of mine. He's ripped and shredded, like torn jeans. He listens to R&B, like Brian McKnight, Tevin Campbell, Boyz II Men. It's the weirdest thing, but that's what gets him going. Like, I don't know how he does it. I mean, it took me a while to stop listening to music.
Yeah. Was it a deliberate thing? Like, were you trying to wean yourself?
The first time I forgot my AirPods. And then I pushed through it and I realized that because I time my reps, right? I time my reps, I time my breaks. So it's like constantly there's an alarm going off every minute. So it just started disturbing my playing of music. So then I was just like, everybody knows when they hear that alarm go off, I'm in the gym.
Okay.
Yeah,
Interesting.
so it's like 30 seconds to a minute rest and the alarm keeps going off.
So, the song Cafe de Flore, you wouldn't even put that on this hypothetical playlist? It's not hypothetical.
While I'm working out?
Yeah.
No.
No. What did you used to listen to when you worked out? Like, what was the day that you didn't take your AirPods with you? What were you gonna listen to?
I think for me, I dabble in like a lot of genre bending musicians because I find myself to be one where I don't like listening to like this, call it trap from beginning to end, right? And I like to go, maybe track 6 is a trap song and then track 9 is a jazz, or it's Andre 3000 playing the flute and it's like we're somewhere else, right? I like to, even when I curate playlists, I like to take you on a journey of we're going up and then we go down and then we stay in that lull period for a bit.
Can't be here the whole
Not
time.
the whole time, right? Because I found that when I was working out or running, the time I used to run, I'll run to house music and now I'm running at 120 BPM and I'm like, oh my God, I need to stop, right? And I'm like, these beats are dictating my pace and I need to be able to dictate my own pace. So that's one of the reasons why I stopped listening to music in the gym.
I really like how deliberate like everything is, even though it's like going with the flow, you always allow room for intentionality and being deliberate to find its way into like course correcting and going in a direction you want to go in.
Yeah.
That's really consistent. Like throughout the conversation, it's shown itself in many different facets. It's really cool. I like it. Soft. Seeing our future today.
Today.
How did you guys start it?
Myself and Mark used to sit on the balcony and smoke hookah for hours on end and come up with all these ideas.
Smoke hookah.
Yeah.
For real.
And like we sat the one time, or a few occasions, and we're just like, you know what? It's just so annoying. We know so many talented musicians that are not given the platform, and we're also two musicians that don't get the platform because one, we don't have the fan base, or we don't have the marketing teams or the budgets behind us, and we can't get on TV. So we sat there, we're like, we need to create our own platform. And while doing that, we pulled in Bash. And we had this extended conversation with Bash and Tepo, and then we sat, we're like, okay, cool. We had lunch in Bryanston, breakfast in Bryanston the one time. And we're formalizing it, and we're just like, okay, cool, what's the name? And it was a time everybody was saying soft life. And we're like, soft, but it needs to mean something to us. And the name came after the rationale, right? And the rationale just spoke volumes when I just said, seeing our future today. And it's just like, oh my God, that's the word, that's the name. And then we moved forward with it. And I think it was a beautiful moment in time that's been able to carry on. And I think our most recent conversation in our annual general meeting was, we can't have we call it a Grootman conversation, where you sit and you say, hey, you remember that time when we did that thing? It was so cool. And there's no room for you to do it anymore because other people came in and did it better, right? And we said we can't let that happen to ourselves, right? So we have to figure out, how do we elevate this platform for other people as well? Because it's beautiful, we get great numbers, we get awesome reach, but how do we then scale to a same level as Tiny Desk and Soft and,
Colors.
Yes, colors, there we go. Colors and, right? And no, we've had some very like enlightening conversations, and I feel like we're on the right path. So there's a beautiful future for us. us being musicians, and we have been talking about how do we include other creatives.
Well, you guys did the hardest thing, which is baking a pie that, didn't exist.
Yeah.
And already, just like cutting it into slices and giving it to all the creatives that you have, including me. And it's an iconic landmark already. So it's really just a matter of, taking it, well, not even taking it anywhere. It's just growing it, like, and tending to it, which I'm sure you guys are, and I can't wait to see what comes of it next.
It's beautiful, man. It's like, we've had people come on set. We had this one girl come on set, and we do the whole thing. We go action, and she starts singing. She stops and starts crying. So we all look at each other. What's going on here? She says, "Sorry, like, this is such a big moment for me." And I was like, "Wow." Right? Like, we couldn't believe it. It was like, "Whoa, what do you mean?" Right? Because sometimes you don't see it because you're so close to it. And like shooting season 4 now, we've had a lot of people come in and just sit there. "Yo, can we take photos? Is that okay?" I'm like, "Yeah, you're here. Like, what do you mean?" He's like, "No, this is such a big thing, dude. I can't believe I'm here." And for us, because we're so close to it, we don't realize the impact we have, right? There's a guy who came in, he flew in from the UK with his artist. And he flew to PE, was supposed to fly to Cape Town. Found out that we're shooting that Saturday. He was supposed to fly to Cape Town. Changed their flights to fly to Joburg, do their episode, and then stay the night and then fly to Cape Town, right? And while he was there, he's like, they were actually the final act for the season. And he says, "Yo, can I get you guys all in front here? I just want to take a video of you guys in a picture." And we're like, "Okay, cool." So the 4 of us are standing in front there, and he goes, "Okay, I've always wanted to do this." Camera rolling. I said, "Oh my goodness."
Take 643.
Yeah.
Lebo, you called a ridiculously high number when I did it. I'm like, oh, people would think it was just realistic enough that people might think that took that many takes.
You know what's crazy? I used to do that. I think the first 2 seasons I did that. And then I realized that there was somebody in the comments who said, "Wow, it took you 1 take to do this." And then I said, "Oh, wow, people think I'm serious." When I say, "Take 69 or take 704 or take 420, and then they think I'm serious. And I just realized that I need to just say, "Take 1 for everybody," even though it's not your first take, and then our editor will deal with it. But like, it's like, it needs to be take 1 for everybody so nobody gets like confused. Like, I'm sorry I did that to you.
No, I didn't feel bad about it. I just thought it was funny. I think at best it was just like, oh, what if others think this? But then I'm like, you know what?
You're here. Right?
Exactly. And that was so special. Like, that was like the highlight of my year, like accolade-wise.
Yeah.
I still, to this day, I'm like, the wooden stool. Have you seen it?
Yeah.
Not enough. Go, check it out.
Yeah.
It is a big deal. And especially, you know exactly what it feels like. Like you said, the birth of this came from being creatives. Hey! The God
The
sport.
God sport. There we go.
Whoa!
I told you, God is always talking. He's always
here. That's deep. That's like the best letter that could have fallen. Like, are you kidding?
Yeah.
Wow.
Or we could just drop this one as well.
The God port.
Yeah, because God is here.
God is here. Oh, whoa. But yeah, like, you know exactly how few and far between opportunities are for up-and-coming artists who are just dying to find a place to showcase their art. Even within the eventing space and performances, there's so many gatekeepers that if at best they want you to perform, it's like an opportunity for exposure. But at the worst, it's like, oh, you're not good enough to even crack this lineup. Instead, we're gonna fill the same 6 artists you're gonna see anywhere around town tonight.
Yeah.
It's the same, it's 80-20 principle, but in some cities it feels more stark. And especially in Joburg, where there's maybe not as many venues that are created with the capacity of having live music, having that iconic stool, wooden stool, and that backdrop with like the fireplace behind it, like that is an iconic Joburg landmark associated with music. Hearing it, like, before you might have actually had access to it. And it really is that. And so many artists have grown so much since they've been on.
I mean, we had an A&R say that if you're a lazy A&R, just watch The Wooden Stool. And he said it. He's with a very big record label. He said that's what we do. And that's why a lot of the guys that come on the stool get signed. You know, we don't feel any type of way about it. It's like, yeah, that's the opportunity. I'm glad you got it, right? I mean, that's the point. So I say this with a heavy heart to say that the season 4 that's coming, that's actually the last season that we're in that space.
Wow. But that's beautiful.
Yeah,
you know?
it's poetic.
It's a full circle.
It's poetic.
That's full circle. Well, I have a question for you that's just for you. What do you see in your future?
Oh, that's like possibly the worst question in the world. After the why Lebo Lukewarm.
I don't know who asks you that question.
Yeah.
Wouldn't be me.
No,
Wouldn't start my question with that.
I think it's such an open-ended question, more so for me, because I think I operate in seasons, and I'm coming out of my winter season, you know, and I feel like I'm coming into the spring where things are blossoming, and you know, all this work that we do in the dark, you know, when everybody else is sleeping.
But also load shedding.
That too. I mean, we don't get load shed where I'm from.
Okay.
Yeah, but it's like, you know, it's the work that people don't see that is the most important, right? And I feel like I've been doing a lot of that, and we are entering a new season where I pray that it's harvest season, you know, and I think I live with this philosophy of life is cyclical and it's seasonal, and if you understand that, you'll know that you're not going through a hard time, you're going through pruning season, and after this season you will bear fruits, right? So just bear with it, just do what you need to do, water this, tend to the soil. That's it. Make sure you are ready for when the rain comes. And it's rainy season right now for me, you know, and after this, we've got fruits. So that's what, I know I was very up in the air with that.
The unamusement park seems to be also the work that people aren't seeing. So just remember that.
There's a time and place for that. I've got the artwork, I've got the track listing, the tracks are there. They're just sitting there.
Hey, you know, like whatever artist I bring on and they tell me about unreleased works, I say the same thing.
What?
Release it. That's the thing. That's the thing.
Yeah.
But if you had to distill like one lesson, one major lesson you've learned from your 20s, what would it be?
One major lesson I learned, in regards to what? Because there's a lot.
You're welcome to give me more than one lesson.
No, in regards to what? I need us to funnel it.
In regards to career path.
Take your time, right? Know what it is you want to do. It's okay if you change your mind. I mean, I always say that life or careers or skills should be treated like the letter T, capital T, where you focus, and then once you're good, then you spread, right? So you could focus on one thing, and then you can decide what it is, what else you want to do. But you have to be good at one thing, you know, and when you're good at one thing, that's the one thing that's going to make sure you can, it's your safety net, right? If everything else you're trying out doesn't work, you still have this thing that you're really good at. And that's the one thing that I'd leave with whoever's listening.
And lifestyle, health, well-being?
You can, I don't know, like lifestyle, like your body is so important, you know, like.
What did your 20s teach you about that?
My 20s taught me that I'm glad I was physical in my 20s, you know. I think I wish I was less physical, because then I wouldn't have knee problems, right? And a shoulder problem and a rotator cuff problem that I'm constantly nursing. And that is such a small thing in the overarching theme of health that, yes, you'll get ailments, but it would have been worse had I not been active, right? And I feel like my 20s taught.
Sorry, it's a smart TV.
Yeah. my 20s, I think I'm controlling it because I'm moving my head
Yeah,
so
it happens with our heads. It happens.
Okay.
It's not very smart.
Yeah. So I think with my 20s, I learned that it's important to treat yourself and your body like a machine and take care of it because it's the only thing that matters, you know. Everything else matters up until you don't have your health, and then nothing else matters but your health, right? So it's the one thing that really matters.
I love it. We have just 2 fun tasks left. Do you have time?
Kind of. Let's go.
Kind of. Okay. We'll make it fast.
Yeah.
All right. You have a segment called Explain.
Explain.
Which is Explain.
Explain. All right.
Which is a set of random rapid-fire questions coming your way. As a professional photographer, what is the secret to the ultimate head-over meals photo?
Location. So make sure that your setting is good.
Okay. What setting?
The table.
Okay, the setting is good.
Yeah.
But like...
No, it's head over meals. So it's right on top to bottom.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, cool. Good. How many Arsenal kits do you own?
Ooh, 6.
Okay. All right. Nice.
2 red ones.
2 red ones.
Yeah.
1 black one.
One black one.
One yellow.
One yellow. And then I've got the women's pink and blue.
Nice.
And then I've got the banana, the bruised banana.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
Nice. Love it. One's got to go behind the lens or behind the mic.
Behind the mic.
Okay. Nice.
Behind the mic. I'm low-key over-wrap.
Okay.
Low-key.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, it's been said before that...
So, should it have been behind the strings instead?
Perhaps. No, I mean, it's been said that hip-hop is for hip people, right? So the older you get, the less hip you become. Otherwise,
More hip problems.
Yeah, you just have hip problems, right? So, I mean, I think Andre 3000 said it when they were hounding him for a hip-hop album, and he said, it's in the name. The older you get, the further away from hip you veer, right? And he's like, leave it to the kids. Hip-hop is for the kids.
Okay.
Yeah. Otherwise, you're like a 40-year-old guy making music for 21-year-olds. That's a bit creepy.
There's quite a few of those.
It's a bit creepy. It's a bit creepy. Let it go. Get
Point
into the
taken.
music business.
What's your least favorite place that you visited?
Oh, that's unfair.
It's okay. I don't think they're gonna end their relationship with you or not stamp your visa. But it's also an opportunity for a story, a quick story.
The least favorite place I've visited?
Yeah, or traveled to.
I don't think I have one.
Really?
Yeah, I don't think I have one. Like, I've done like really contrasting styles of travel, right? I've done like the ultra luxe, super pampered kind of travel, and I've done like backpack, sleeping in an alleyway kind of travel, right? And I'm like, a lot of the experiences have kind of just taught me different things, and I take away and draw valuable things from them, right?
Was there a place where like your expectation of the place and like the place itself just didn't align well?
Oh, I don't do that. So I don't do that because there's a thing, I don't know if it's ever been coined, where it's the Paris syndrome, where people have this idea and romanticize Paris, and they get there and
it's smell it.
It's not exactly what you thought it was, right? And for me, Paris is one of my favorite cities, most favorite cities in the world, right? And I think when you travel, expectation management is such a big thing. Like, don't expect anything. Just go there. And you'll realize that there's a lot of similarities to home, right? And there's a lot of differences as well. Like, for the longest time, I thought South Africa didn't have a culture of street food, right? Because I did India, I did the Far East with Singapore and Thailand and all these other places. And I was like, oh, there's such a robust culture of street food. And then why don't we have it? And then I went to Sun City. I had an aha moment this past weekend when we drove through Britain. I was like, whoa, this is it. This is the
Literally.
street food.
You passed street food at Jackson.
Right? So even in Joburg, I miss it because I'm not looking for it. Right? I mean, back in uni, we'd go to this trailer. Wherever there's a construction site, there's a little caravan trailer, so you could go there and get a plate. So it's like, that's a version of street food.
Absolutely.
But it never registered as that to me. Because I always just saw like rows and drones of people just
Yes.
cooking and loud noises and like
Plastic chairs set up,
a sensory
warm beer.
assault, and it's just like different warm beer, exactly, right? So yeah, I don't have a least favorite place.
Well, I think that's quite useful information as well, because like it's framing. Try to unlearn and not think about the things that you might know, the preconceived notions you have of a place, so that you can actually experience it with fresher eyes.
Exactly.
What is one thing you enjoy about Love Island?
That's funny. You sound like Nadwa. You know Nadwa.
Yes.
He said, "He's like, how do you know that?" I love the format. Right?
Okay.
I love that format of television. I think people don't realize that there's a format to it. It's the same, it's the Love Island format, Temptation Island, Too Hot to Handle,
Okay.
Survivor, right? It's about relationship building and manipulation, right? Because those are couples, are they really in love? No. We all just want to win. And the people that win are the people that play with the strategy, right? It's all strategy.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I love that format.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice. I did want to know what the novelty was.
Yeah.
Because just saying you like Love Island doesn't tell us anything about what you like
So
about
it's not about oh, there's a new bomb just entered the it's like
I didn't think it was bad.
I want to see what this bomb is going to do to this couple. I want to see how this guy is going to handle it. And then when they drop the ball, I'm like, this guy's not strategic. Right?
It's like chess.
It's about
with hot people.
Exactly. Hot is relative.
Hot is relative. Our closing tradition is for you to give us one book that's changed your life.
Oh, I don't read.
I know you listen to audiobooks.
I don't do that either.
Oh.
I know, it's
so
crazy.
what? That caption was a lie?
Which one?
The
Give
one
me
where
audio-
you said you like listening to audiobooks?
I do, but like I wouldn't be able to like give you one right now. I haven't done that in a while. But
What's one book that's changed your life? Like it doesn't have to be recent. It doesn't have to be a good
so
time.
so because I rely so much on like visual stimuli that I find that reading for me, and I love that people read. I love that people write. For me is that because a lot happens in here and I do a lot of problem solving all the time, when I'm reading your book, I'm also trying to figure out things. And then when I get to the point where you explain it, I'm disappointed. I'm like, no, dude, this is not how it should have gone. And then I stop reading your book, right? And that's the reason why I don't fully enjoy reading, because I'm just like, no, man, my ending was better, right? So I prefer to watch, because then I'm doing a lot of things at once. I'm listening to the dialogue, I'm watching the performance, I'm looking at the camera language, I'm looking at the movement, I'm looking at the lighting, I'm looking at the grading, I'm looking at the edit, I'm listening to the music. There's so many things that are going in that I'm constantly going, I don't have time to solve your problem. I'm just going, oh my God, that was beautiful. Oh, that was unnecessary. You know, like I was watching this movie now, Leave the World Behind. There's 2 shots in there. Overall, cinematically beautiful. But there's 2 shots that were unnecessary. From a director's perspective, I'm going, oh, you could have done without that shot, right? And that's how I watch movies now. That's how I listen to music. I dissect and I'm going, that melody line could have been a B flat. You know, it's like, it's weird. That's why like reading for me doesn't allow me to do that. So I get bored. I can read a column. I can read a short think piece, but like a novel, non-fiction, fiction is just too much for me.
Okay. Well, that brings us to the end of this conversation.
I'm sorry.
No. What do you mean? Because you don't have a book?
Did I ruin your crescendo?
No, it's okay. A good host moves wherever the crescendo is.
Yeah.
No, I love it. Like I I love the sensory overload that is somehow not overload for you.
Yeah.
Because you get to experience isolated factors happening together. It's kind of like that street food situation, except, you know, you're also a chef and you know.
I'd use the word chef loosely, please. Don't call me a chef, because I'm not a chef. I respect all people who can cook up a meal.
Well, you know,
With
in
intention.
the
With intention.
It's
With
an
intention.
analogy.
Yes, I think being a chef is like being an artist. Yeah.
Okay, what's the second half of that analogy?
No, because like a lot of the times people think you can, just because you've got pans and pots and ingredients, you can make like really good food. And it's not always the case.
No, it's not.
Yeah, it's like people who think, just because I got a camera, I'm a photographer. I'm like, you take photos, you don't make photos. You know, so.
Yeah, it's a beautiful note to be on.
There we go.
Thank you so much for being with us, Lebo. You're a great sport.
Awesome.
Thanks.
Thank you for having me.
No, anytime.
Bye.
Bye. Back to Atlanta. If you took away any value and learned anything from this episode, please remember to like and subscribe so myself and Aiden work even harder to bring you more good sports and amazing guests.